What's up, everybody? It's another episode of Coast to Coast. I am hosting today. I'm Bags. Look who's next to me. We haven't seen him in like 3 months, mostly because Dallas sucks and he knows it and he's been hiding from us. You got McLovin on the one side. We've got Stat Guy below. We may get Bo. We may not get Bo. It depends on if the wind blows him on the show or not. It's at the moment they're having some inclement weather up in Seattle. But since you're here, Jay, we might as well start right off with you
Just
guys.
rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. How do you feel that the season's going so far?
Man, look, I will tell you this: Jerry Jones owes me a lot of money for therapy. Okay, because after dealing with this team, I feel like I need to double up my therapy. Apparently, like I was telling you earlier in the pre-show, he feels like the Mark McCarthy still has control of the locker room. Bullshit. Jerry be smoking that crack, or he's delusional, or he's just putting on a front. I don't know, one of the three. Because if he thinks that Mike McCarthy still has that locker room, he got another thing coming. So yeah, we got that. So I guess we're not going to get an in-season change. We're not going to get an interim manager, even that's exactly what we need. Dak Prescott's still going to suck up all the money out of us. We're not going to get a good draft pick, probably. Who knows? Pax, it's just hell being a Dallas Cowboys fan. It is hell.
Hey, listen, I said last year that you guys were going to implode, and you didn't. And I doubled down. I said this year it will happen. So this isn't a surprise to me.
Nah.
I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise to you because of really all of their off-season acquisitions, i.e., was it Zeke? That was who they got.
Yeah, Zeke. Well, and the thing is, they brought in Dalvin Cook off the practice squad, but even Dalvin Cook can't get the starting job, which tells me I guess Dalvin Cook is just cooked. Because if you can't make it with the Cowboys with Dowdle and Vaughn and whatever else little guys they got over there, then you can't do nothing, right? Because this is not the first team he's been with. Well, he was with the Jets, didn't do anything with the Jets, So I guess maybe his career is done for. Because if you can't do it in Dallas, I don't know where you're going to do it.
It's amazing how the mighty have fallen. You know what I mean? Like, because was it just 3 years ago he was like the feature running back in Minnesota, right? Almost ran for 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
And then like they didn't want to re-sign him, and next thing you know, he's nowhere.
And I wonder if that's a tribute to maybe Minnesota's line was making him look better than what he is. Could that be an issue? I mean, that's kind of your neck of the woods, Stat Guy. Was that O-line just making him look better than what he really is?
Not necessarily. Having a guy like Justin Jefferson does help, because you can, like, when you have a guy like Justin Jefferson, you can't really put 9 guys in the box to stop a running back like Dalvin Cook. You have to play 5-6 on the line, which does open things up for Dalvin Cook a little bit more.
Well, hell, Dallas has CeeDee Lamb. I mean, I'm not saying CeeDee Lamb is better than Justin Jefferson, but he's a pretty good wide receiver one. I mean, to me, that would almost kind of – that's what I'm saying. He should be able to have that kind of luck he had in Minnesota with us. Now, I know our offensive line is a little younger than what we used to have, but we still got a fairly decent offensive line,
You know what? I'm going to say barely. Because ultimately you got Martin, who's probably on his last few games. He's probably going to retire.
I think this is his last contract. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't think that he'll be back unless he goes to a team like either the 49ers or, maybe even I wouldn't be surprised to see him go to like L.A., the Chargers. Somebody who needs offensive line help. It's just, I think exactly, Joe. Derrick Henry would also look like garbage with your offensive line.
And that's the thing, right? So, and because we were talking about the implosion, and Pat, we've had numerous conversations about this. I feel like this is the year that, if I was Jerry Jones, I'm going to start getting rid of all my high dollar contracts, and I'm just going to start from scratch, right? Trade all your guys as much as you can, try to see whatever draft picks you can get out of it, and then just start looking to rebuild. Obviously, you're going to need a new head coach, and with the new head coach, he's going to want to pick his people And that's a perfect time I feel like that's a perfect time to do it. Now, the only one he may not be able to get rid of is maybe Dak. Maybe nobody wants to take on that contract. So that might be your only one that hampers you. But still, I mean, you can still build around Dak. And then when Dak is done with that contract, then you can go look for your guy. Or you bring in a guy and sit him behind Dak, right? And then let him mature behind Dak. And when Dak is done, then you slide him into the groove with all the other guys you've been building around. But I think we got to go back to a baseline with Dallas. I really think that's the only thing we can do.
Do you think that coaching vacancy is a worthwhile job to grab?
You know, and again, I know exactly because I can tell you, all right, Stack Guy's probably thinking like, not with that ownership group, and he's probably right.
Not necessarily the ownership group. I think it has to do more with the salary cap hell that the Cowboys are in.
Yeah, but I think we can. If I'm a new coach, now granted, Jerry's going to want big changes, and I think, but Jerry has to be realistic. You know, with like you said, with the salary cap, if we go to a baseline and bring in a new guy, like this, maybe even I want to Belichick. I mean, I know his name's been surfaced around there, but I don't want him. I'm just saying that's what I've heard. You know, being surfaced a few times, right?
I can't imagine Belichick would want this job. I
There's
mean,
only one job that Belichick wants, and he kind of openly admitted it already.
He said what now?
There's only one job that Belichick actually
that?
wants, Jacksonville, because of the situation Jacksonville's in with the draft pick, the salary cap space, and a younger quarterback.
yeah, but is he going to be good enough to be able to even change that over? I don't even
If
foresee that to be able to occur.
If he brings Josh McDaniels with him as the OC and one of his old defensive coordinators from New England, whether it's Matt Patricia, whether it's the guy that took over after Matt Patricia left, who was with Belichick for like 8 years on that staff, I think they could.
I don't know. How quickly do you think Belichick could turn around the Jacksonville Jaguars?
I'd say by year 3 they'd be in the playoffs. I'm not saying they'd be a Super Bowl contender by year 3, but I think year 3 they would be in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, year 3 he would be what, 76 years old, right?
74. I think he's only 71 right now.
I thought he just turned 72. I'm not sure, but I mean, I think that I don't know. I think that it would be too much for him even. You know, like I think that that's really too much of an undertaking. I would want a little bit more of a solidified roster if I was him. You know, hey, listen, I got a brand new girlfriend who's like a third of my age. I may want to just stay at home and, have her
here's
like.
the thing with that, though, Pags. I mean, like, how many, whatever coach of vacancies out there, it's probably a team that is probably in bad shape. Otherwise, they wouldn't be changing a head coach. So I think whatever team he goes to, he's probably going to have to deal with certain adversities, right? He's not going to get another Tom Brady and just magic just comes out of nowhere, right? He's going to have to build up something, right? So, I mean, I think no matter where he goes, it'll be the same predicament as Jacksonville. And if Jacksonville has, like what Stat Guy's saying, is the cap space and the picks and things like that, then he could certainly build his team because he would have something to work with. Otherwise, like you said with Dallas, there really isn't anything to work with, right?
Well, I hear you, but I also don't like I said, when I think about stuff like this, like for instance, at what point is Harbaugh of the Ravens on the hot seat?
Yeah.
When does he start to get his seat start to get a little warm for not winning a Super Bowl, for coming in behind the Steelers,
Well,
for having the best team and not making it to the Super Bowl?
He has he has the one Super Bowl win, which does save him. But at the same time, if he doesn't beat Kansas City in the playoffs this year or next year, you have to wonder how long Baltimore is going to keep him there because he's already in year 16 right now.
I mean, in all honesty, I would have thought Mike Tomlin would have been on the hot seat, but the Steelers don't change over coaches that often. So
they've had 4 head coaches in their franchise's history.
Yeah, so it's I mean, and I got to imagine Baltimore's not going to move on from him because I think if they were going to move on from him, they would have already started hurting those rumor mills. I think they're kind of like the Steelers at this point, where like as long as you guys in the playoffs and if you can get past 1 or 2 rounds, whatever, I think that keeps his job safe. I think he's got some time to play with.
I'd be willing to bet that if by chance Baltimore goes into the wild card and doesn't win the division, which is likely now, and goes and loses in the first round of the playoffs, I'd be willing to bet that they make a change at coach at the end of this year.
Wow.
I think it would depend on who they lose to. If they would lose to Buffalo and Kansas City, I don't see it happening. But if they would get the wild card and lose to either Houston or maybe Pittsburgh again, depending on if they saw Pittsburgh in the first round, I could see it happening.
I think that even if they lose to the Chiefs, that's that's the biggest problem he has. He can't beat the Chiefs. Let's be for real. Lamar,
Yeah.
whether he's in his own head or not, and the Ravens cannot beat the Chiefs. They have the biggest problem against them, and that
But they're
alone,
not the only ones.
that
So, I mean,
alone
hell, Buffalo's
may
second
be enough
Yeah.
to move him on the hot seat, to put him on the hot seat. Does that mean he's a bad coach? No, it just means that they need somebody to get them over the hump, where a Belichick would actually fill in pretty well there. I think that would be one of those situations.
But is Lamar Jackson really the type of quarterback that Bill Belichick prefers? I mean, I think he's more the prototypical drop back passer like Brady is, or like Mac Jones was when he drafted Mac Jones, right?
How often does Bill Belichick play offense?
Oh no, he doesn't play offense.
You are correct. He's a defensive guy.
Yeah,
I think that
That's
they
Baltimore's
would be
biggest
fine.
weakness.
I think that he would be absolutely ecstatic with Lamar Jackson, and he would. So the one thing that Belichick has that nobody other than Harbaugh on that team has is a ring, and he's got a number of them.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows what it takes. I mean, the further you get away from that championship, the harder it is to get back.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: is Bill Belichick really the guy, that mastermind guy, or is he just lucky that he lucked into Tom Brady, and Tom Brady just makes him look better than what he really is? Because he hasn't done shit since before Tom Brady or after Tom Brady.
Well, his first year after Tom Brady left, New England made the playoffs with Mac Jones.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, how they didn't really go far.
I think
mean,
it had-
it wasn't this. You know what I'm saying?
It was more so the talent that he was left with after Brady left. Because once
Yeah,
Brady,
that's what I'm saying. I just don't think that Belichick. I know he's got all the rings, and I know they're going to look at him like that. I don't look at him like that. I just look at him that he was lucky enough to have Tom Brady for umpty million years, and Tom just kept him looking good.
well, and it's because he had the same.
And Josh McDaniels. I think Josh McDaniels.
I think that's the key. He had pretty much the same exact staff for 15 years. Whether it was Josh McDaniels calling plays, Matt Patricia, Brian Flores a couple of years, like for the most part, he had the same coaches his entire tenure in New England. So when you have that kind of continuity with your coaching staff, you're going to have a lot of success no matter who you have. Once Brady left and some of those other assistants started to leave, you could see how hard it was for Bill Belichick to have that same kind of success, because the last year that he had McDaniels was Mac Jones' rookie season. New England went 10-6 that year, made the playoffs, only get blown out in the playoffs, but they still got the playoffs with Mac Jones.
And you got to think about this. Like, when I think about his first Super Bowl win as head coach, and he took out Bledsoe and put in Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
And still, Tom Brady got hurt in the AFC Championship game, and Bledsoe won it. The truth of the matter is, Bledsoe did not get his job back after injury, and he felt like he should have. Belichick was the first one to kind of do that, to not give the job back after an injury. And it won him a Super Bowl. But that Super Bowl was not won by the offense that year.
Defense.
So
defense won that. Part of Tom Brady's roast was when Bledsoe got up there and said, "After my injury, you took my job."
Bledsoe was a little bit in the bag that night, though.
Yeah, of course, all over in the bag a little bit. We know.
I could even go as far as to say that the only Super Bowl that Tom Brady really won was maybe the Tampa Bay Super Bowl. Yeah. That it was the defenses that won those Super Bowls for him. He was, and anytime that there was a better defense on the field, I mean, Tom Brady, his numbers in the Super Bowl minus the Super Bowl that he played against the Eagles.
Yeah.
Both of them actually. He, didn't have great games.
And truth be matter is, even if you look at the Atlanta game, Atlanta game, Atlanta could have won that if they would have just stayed with what got them there in the first half, which is keeping the pressure on Brady. They just took the pressure off of Brady that second half, and he just went to freaking work on them. So I almost think it's Atlanta that gave them that championship rather than him earning it. I mean, he still had to go out there and produce. Don't get me wrong, but under pressure, Tom is a different quarterback than normal.
Yeah, Joe, I hear what you're saying here, but the truth of the matter is that team was ready to go win. They had enough pieces on that team to be able to get brought over the top. They had a quarterback who threw just as many picks as touchdowns, and at that point, where it was still made the playoffs. You know what I mean? And so it's like ultimately, I kind of feel that it has nothing to do. Like Tom Brady stepped in shit not once but twice, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what happened there.
And
So
let's be
I don't
honest,
think Tom Brady
Gronkowski
brought them
produced.
to win the Super Bowl. And if you look at that Super Bowl that he played in, and you rewatch that and check how many times, first off, Patrick Mahomes was playing with a concussion.
Mm-hmm.
And he shouldn't have been playing in that game whatsoever. But not only that, he was throwing to guys, and it was just literally hitting them in the helmet, hitting them in the hands, and dropping. I mean, there were more drops in that game by the Chiefs receivers than there were maybe all season long. And
Yeah.
that actually did more, I think. And that was more. I feel like Tampa Bay won it, but really more the Chiefs lost that Super Bowl.
But I
So
thought, but he did take Gronkowski with him, and him and Gronk, before it was Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey, it was Gronk and Brady. I mean, that it was that same type of duo, and they were a good combination. When Gronk is healthy, that was a hard combination to stop.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about Bill Belichick going to a team, and the quarterback that he chooses, whether it's Jacksonville, if you're going to Jacksonville, are you really going to stay with? I mean, I guess you have no choice. You're stuck with Lawrence. So I mean, I get it, but I wouldn't be excited about that. And then that's like, okay, Baltimore, like I said, I think if Baltimore loses in the playoffs, early in the playoffs, I would not be surprised to see Harbaugh let go, that it might be time for a change of scenery over there. Um, I'm trying to see if there would be any place else. Maybe the Steelers. I know that they were talking about possibly getting rid of their coach there. I don't know if the Steelers would go that route.
Are you talking about
You know,
like for coaches getting fired this year?
well, no, I don't think that he would get fired. He's having too good of a season. But the fact that they were considering changing him out last year after he made the playoffs at 9-8,
Yeah.
you know,
I
um,
I think Kyle Shanahan's another one that could fall in the same category as Harbaugh.
yeah, Shanahan. I mean, this year everybody's hurt,
Yeah,
so I
well,
think he gets a pass this year.
Yeah.
he could, but at the same time, he has yet to win that big game with San Francisco. No matter how good, like everyone said, like this was going to be kind of that last window year for San Francisco, knowing the contracts that are expiring on that team, knowing that you're going to have to lock up Purdy, you're going to have to lock up Debo and some of these other guys, where a lot of people felt that this was pretty much the last chance that San Francisco had to win it. And if they don't win it this year, that roster might start looking drastically different. So that's why I think if Kyle Shanahan doesn't make the playoffs this year, I'm not going to say he gets fired, but you could see one of those situations where it's like a mutual parting of ways where John Lynch goes to Shanahan and said, this is the position we're in right now. Do you want to be here for a rebuild or you want to go somewhere else? And if Shanahan says, I'd rather go somewhere else, and I just think they mutually part ways.
That's possible. Again, I think that they have too many weapons on that team to be able to just have to go through a full rebuild. But I mean, I don't know. I think that team has still got too much to be able to just say, okay, we're going to. Obviously, CMC going down this year has really hurt them. Him coming back, I think, is also hurting them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's just not ready to play, and it looks like. Then you had last week, you had their tight end out. Kittle's gone. I don't know if he's going to be back this week, but ultimately you remove that, and all of a sudden that line isn't as formidable. Kittle is actually great at blocking on that line, even with the little
He
chip and
is.
go.
Yeah, no, he definitely is.
So, I mean, there's lots of different reasons why the 49ers are struggling right now, and it has a lot to do with the injuries. But CMC, I mean, they have a good running back over there in place of CMC. But the truth of the matter is that without CMC, it's just not the same. So,
I think I could see Kevin Stefanski as another one too, possibly doing a mutual parting of ways from the Browns, because I don't think he wants anything to do with Deshaun Watson at this point. I just think it's getting to the point where he has no choice because the Browns are stuck with that contract.
yeah, I think for one more year at least.
Yeah. I could see Stefanski just saying, I don't want to be here no more because we can't win with Watson.
Yeah, I hear that. It's maybe
Because Stefanski was linked to the Bears job if that opens up, and he was also linked to the Saints job. I mean, I could see Stefanski leaving for either one of those just because the Saints. I mean, Derek Carr is not a great quarterback, but he's a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson. And given what the Bears have for salary cap space, that would put Stefanski in a better position to at least retool that roster the way he wants it to be.
I would, if I took that job, Derek Carr would be the first one to go.
No, he probably would be just because of the salary cap tied to him, and the Saints are in salary cap hell. But the Bears make the most sense for Stefanski just because they have a quarterback in place, they have all the offensive weapons signed, they have still, I think, $50 or $60 million in cap space to play with next year. He'd be able to make a lot of moves to retool that roster the way he wants it.
So if you take out Derek Carr, then you're basically going to ride with Spencer Rattler until you can see if you can get a better quarterback.
Well, they'll draft somebody else.
That's what I'm saying. So otherwise, you're gonna have to go out and draft some. Okay, yeah.
And would you want Stefanski after coming off of this? Coming off of the.
I wouldn't want to touch anything with the Browns.
Oh, I'd want Stefanski because this is not Stefanski's fault. He's not the one that signed Watson to this contract. Because he got Cleveland to the playoffs with Baker Mayfield, and they came within, 45 seconds to beating the Chiefs that year in the playoffs? And then the next year, Mayfield got hurt 6 weeks into the season when Cleveland was 4-2, and they ended up going 8-8 that year, and then the year after that is when they brought in Watson. Stefanski had nothing to do with the Browns bringing in Watson. He had nothing to do with the contract they gave him, and he has nothing to do with Watson missing more games than he's playing. Stefanski's stuck with such a horrible draw right now because Cleveland has to pay Watson. They have to play him because they have to pay him. And you got rid of Amari Cooper. You lost Nick Chubb, and you've gotten rid of so many of the pieces that have led to the success that he's had in Cleveland. He's just kind of like one of those dead man walking coaches where it's just like, I'm screwed and I can't do anything.
Yeah, but I mean, at that point, but if you quit, I can't see him going somewhere else right away. I think that he would have to sit out a year. And then just kind of let the dust settle a little bit, see what's happening, and at that point, I almost would want to, especially after such a bad job.
Oh yeah.
I would want to just sit back and be like, okay,
or come back or go to an OC role next year just to get out of the head coaching spot and just still be involved, but just not the head coaching responsibilities.
I may not even do that. I might just do a straight. You know what? I want to advise. I'm just going to be an advisor, a senior advisor to a team where I don't want any responsibility of running the offense or the defense or head coach. I just want to be able to talk to somebody else about running it. And I think that's what I would do. I mean, especially if you've had such a bad taste in your mouth from that job. Because that's really what it is. It leaves a bad taste.
Go back to taking the coordinator's job if you want to go that route, and then come back whenever the job opens up that you really want, and just go interview for it. But at least you can keep building your resume up through coordination.
If you were a head coach in the NFL, do you really need to build your resume?
Well,
John Gruden hasn't even been in.
I mean, take Pete Carroll, for example. He came in, his first NFL coach job was New England. It didn't work out for him. He goes back, USC, coaches to college level. Then he comes back, gets the Seahawks job, and takes him to a Super Bowl. So I don't think that's a bad thing. As long as you're involved in coaching and you're putting up good results, it can sometimes take away the bad thing that happened over in Cleveland and put him into a better spot.
I mean, John Gruden's name has been coming around lately, and it's interesting that they're putting him back in the public eye a little bit, just to see, like they're doing a water test right now on him to see what type of response you get by seeing his face, and the water test is coming back positive. It's like, yeah, he's been missing for a little while. I would like to see what he would do back with a team again and have that type of responsibility of a head coach.
Not even back with the team, but back with a team that has a young quarterback, because that's something that Gruden has always had success with, was like with young quarterbacks. Because remember when he was on Monday Night Football, how he always did like that quarterback cam show on ESPN all the time, where we'd always have like the prospect quarterback come in, they would break down his film, and then he would kind of go over like plays and ask the quarterback like what he would do in a situation like that. Like Gruden's always been very good with young quarterbacks, and a lot of the job openings that he's going to have if he does come back, you're going to either have a young quarterback that's there right now, or you'll have a chance to draft a young quarterback.
And that's the thing, though. I mean, he's been linked. His name has been thrown in there with the likes of Chicago. If Eberflus is out, he's been linked to that one. So that's a young quarterback like you're talking about. So that could be a good spot, especially with all the picks and all the other guys that and the free agents they just brought in. I mean, that could be very enticing to him.
It could be.
The Bears have their hire in mind already. They're just hoping they get a chance to get him because they know they done messed up.
And who is that, do you think?
It's Kingsbury. That's who the Bears want, because Kingsbury was Caleb Williams' OC at USC. And they had him in the building interviewing for the offensive coordinator job this summer, and they let him get out of the building without offering him a contract, and the next day he signed that contract with Washington. They already know they messed up.
You saw an article that Dan Quinn filed a lawsuit against the Eagles because the Eagles fans were booing them.
Okay.
It's that guy. Go ahead. You see if that has, if there's been any lawsuits filed because fans are mean.
What kind of booing are we talking about?
Yeah, I guess that's like Dan Quinn. Like, I doubt that is really the case, but you never know. I mean, it's Dan Quinn. I would think has got a little bit more.
We ain't getting found no lawsuits. We get booed everywhere we go. Shit.
Even by your own stadium right now.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? Hey, listen. So if anybody's going to file a lawsuit, you'd think it'd be Mike McCarthy, because his name's been dragged through the mud all over the place. So I'm surprised if anybody's going to file a lawsuit, I thought it would be him.
And how about 6 games at home, 6 losses? The last 3 by over 20 points each.
Well, you know what they say, Pags. If you're gonna do something, go big. And there's nothing going. If we're gonna lose, we're gonna lose all the way. Matter of fact, we're gonna have the largest or the most ugliest, most losses in NFL history. Right? I think 6 in a row at home. That's like supposed to be like an NFL record for the worst losses. I think by 20 plus points or more. So, what are you gonna do, man? Shit.
Take another 3 losses. Take another 3 losses by 20.
I kind of find it funny how the only 2 teams in the NFL right now that do not have a home win are Dallas and the Giants, and they play each other on Thanksgiving. Something's got to give on Thanksgiving. Do the Cowboys win, or do they end up in a tie?
Well, hold on. You're saying home loss. Well, they're not both playing at home.
I know, because
I suspect that the Giants are going to win that game.
Well, because the Giants get Tampa Bay at home this week, so I don't see the Giants beating Tampa Bay this week, which would keep them winless at home, and then they go to Dallas the week after.
On Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Jeez.
And I suspect that Dallas will lose that to the Giants. And
I don't know. You know what? I hear where you're going with that, right? But they are starting DeVito. And everybody's got the last name of DeVito. I think of Danny DeVito. Every time I hear that guy's name, I was thinking of Danny DeVito. But that guy was actually, I think if they're going to roll him out as quarterback, I think we're okay to get that win. Matter of fact, I will say this: if we lose to DeVito and the Giants,
shave the beard.
DeVito's only starting this week. Brian Daboll made it sound like DeVito's going to start this week and Drew Lock's going to start on Thanksgiving. I mean, he made it sound like they're going to do like alternating weeks to try to figure out who they want to stick with as the backup next year.
Really, I don't know that that's a good idea, but I
Hey, the
mean,
Cowboys are starting Trey Lance on Thanksgiving, so
well,
Wait,
yeah, because they
is that a
saw
fifth year?
exactly what Cooper Rush was doing, and that was not catching the ball when it's hiked to him.
yeah.
So Trey Lance has actually played a little bit better for them. You know,
Well, he
a
certainly
little
ran
bit.
the ball better for us. I don't know if he's thrown the ball better for us. That's the only thing that kind of makes me nervous is I haven't really seen him throw the ball a whole lot. I've seen him do scrambles.
Well, yeah, when he's thrown the ball, somebody's got. I think he's got like 5 throws.
something like that. He hasn't thrown it much.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's a small sample size, but I mean, at this point, I really don't care. I mean, if they want to throw Trey Lance in there, hey, you traded for him. You might as well give him a shot. I mean,
See what you have left. I mean, there's
you know
there's
what I
not much
mean?
left in Cowboy
Cowboy land.
coffers.
If anybody needs to figure out what they got, it's the Cowboys. So look, you already know you're not going to win this year. Let's just get that out the way. I'm a realist. Okay, I love my Cowboys, but I'm a realist, and the realism in me tells me we ain't going nowhere this year. Matter of fact, we can't even get 15 points. So if you know you're not going anywhere, start testing out all the third stringers and second stringers, Trey Lance, and let's figure out what the hell we got, and then go next year and figure out how you're going to fix this.
Well, and I kind of see. I wonder exactly because again, it starts with your offensive line
Of
and your
course it does.
defensive line, and your
Absolutely.
offensive line is about to really fall apart now because, like I said, your perennial Pro Bowler is about to retire
Yeah.
or go play for another team because I don't know that he'd play for Dallas anymore. I got to imagine that most of the players on this roster are so fed up with Dallas that they're ready to get out.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I have a lot of loyalty for the guys that have given a lot to the Cowboys. And Zach Martin, Frederick, those kind of guys that were on that offensive line forever. They deserve to be able to go to another team and have an opportunity to get a Super Bowl. I mean, because I hate to see them retire out but not ever get a ring when they could have gotten one if they just gone maybe to a different location, right? San Francisco, Philadelphia, even though I hate Philadelphia, whatever. Whoever can give them the best possibility to win because they should be given that opportunity instead of just wasting away at a potential, most likely at some point, rebuild, right? He ain't going to get a Super Bowl with this line.
No, not with Dallas. So
No.
Dallas is right now at least 3 years away. But all their fans will say next year is their year.
Unfortunately, don't say all, say most. Most isn't accurate because I have met Cowboy fans that are realistic, right? But then you have the ones out there like the meme. Gotta love that meme where the dude's like he's like chanting for the Cowboys, and then he starts lighting his jersey on fire, and then he says he's done with the Cowboys. And he starts putting on the Buffalo Bills. It's like, go Bills! It's our year for Super Bowl. And I'm like, dude, yeah, what a time to be alive. What a time to be alive, man. Damn.
Yeah, I tell you, it's going to be fun for Dallas Cowboys fans, or at least for me to watch Dallas Cowboys fans poop the bed every year now for the next couple of years because until they get rid of Dak,
Oh, I agree with all of what you're saying, but let me ask you this: let's look at the Eagles for a minute. Now, you guys have had a lot of talent come through there, a lot, and you guys have been in a position to win. Matter of fact, you're in a position right now to win.
Right.
What does it look like if you guys don't get there?
Well, I got us going to the NFC Championship game.
Okay.
So I also don't have us getting past that point. I can't see past that point. So that's the hard part. Can we get past them? Yes. If we were to get past Detroit in Detroit, that is going to come back to that coach made a mistake. That's how I foresee. That's how I foresee the Eagles beating Detroit in the NFC Championship game.
If you get past Detroit, that means you face them in the NFC Championship game because Detroit and Philadelphia are going to be the top 2 seeds. It's just a matter
I would agree with that. I would totally agree with that. And that's the thing, Pags, right? Like And that's the thing with the Cowboys. We've had a competitive team for a very long period of time. Now, we didn't get past the first round of the playoffs. I'm not saying that. But we've always had a really good competitive team. And now you're starting to see the brakes fall off of that, right? Now we're kind of – and that's why I kind of think with the Eagles, like how long of a window do you give this Eagles team at that level? I mean, I imagine it's a little bit, but how much – I mean, because Barkley – I mean, how long could he last in those knees?
Well, at the moment, you're asking a funny question because he's doing great right now.
No, I'm not
So,
doing great right now. I'm not saying like his performance. I'm saying over the long haul. Like how many years, are you at this level?
Until Barkley's gone.
3.
Until Barkley's gone.
Yeah, I think he's good for at least 3, maybe 4. And then again, it's going to be hard. He's 27 right now.
Yeah.
So he's going to have at least, like I said, 3-4 years left. I think at 31, that's about time after you're getting beat up like that and such. But look at CMC. CMC's 30, about to turn 31.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And now it's finally his legs finally caught up to him. But he was known for injuries.
He's been abused forever with Carolina. I mean that
right.
running back. You know what he reminds me? He reminds me of Earl Campbell. And what I mean by that is when Earl Campbell played for the Oilers, he was literally 70% of their offense. 70%. That guy. I mean, they ran the ever living dog shit out of Earl Campbell. They even put him at kickoff returns, right? I mean, they just ran that dude into the freaking ground. And that's kind of where I see Christian McCaffrey. I feel like he requires so much of the offense's attention, especially, and I'm talking about more like Carolina. I just kind of felt it ruined him physically.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that was a different era back then.
Yeah.
Much different. Running was the big deal. Like really, you think of Minnesota with Adrian Peterson. He was the entire offense. And they had good players around him too. They had good receivers. They had a halfway decent quarterback, but always just gave it to him. And that's how they won games until people learned in the playoffs that just stop him. And then next thing you know, that's you lose that game.
Here's the thing too, right? And I never thought I'd say the day that I would actually say this in my life. I always hear people say, well, I don't like the team. I just like the player. And that's the one thing I do like about Philly. I don't like the team, but I love Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts is from my hometown. And I have friends of mine that know him, right? Because he went to Channelview High School. And it's a very, very, very small area. Everybody kind of knows everybody. And so I do want to see him succeed, because he's from my neck of the woods, So I will not root for the Eagles, but I will root for Jalen Hurts.
So if Jalen Hurts wins the Super Bowl, you'll be happy for him.
I will absolutely be happy for him. Absolutely. Because you know what? You go when you're in the NFL, you can't go to your hometown most of the time. You're going to get drafted to another city. But, I still have a love for anybody that comes out of my hometown that makes it big and goes on to do big things.
Rob, do I worry that Saquon could end up like CMC? No. We use him differently than the 49ers use CMC. And that's the difference. And we use him different than the Giants do. I know that he gets more touches with us right now. It seems that way. However, the touches he gets are really north-south touches. When he would go east and west, that would be where the problems really occur, where he's out in space and he goes to make some cuts and somebody, gets on his leg, and that's why he would get out. If you noticed, every injury that he ever had with the Giants was outside of the tackles. And if you notice how the Eagles use him inside the tackles. So I fully expect that Saquon is going to be able to withstand some of the, seasons that he couldn't do with the Giants in a much better way. And I think he'll be fine for at least the 3 years that he's going to be here. I figure they'll re-sign him. That 4th year, he'll start getting an injury. And then, but I mean, I suspect that he's going to go 2,000 yards this year rushing. He's already on his way for that.
Yeah.
So I think that he's absolutely going to do that, and he could do that by week 16. by the way he's running right now. So
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, Saquon is he's a great talent, man. He just got stuck in New York, man. And New York is just
uh,
that's like the wrong place you don't want to go as a running back, right? And I think now that he's with Philly, you guys got a good O line. You know, he can actually do something. He doesn't have to be the focal point of the offense. He just has to run and run it well, and that's exactly what he's doing.
really,
Yep.
and that's the Florida Atlantic.
Yes.
What would be his credentials to be able to do that? Is that just one of these? Hey, since Prime's doing it, I can do it.
It's more so that's part of it, but it's more so you get a name like Ray Lewis to coach your team. You're going to start getting the recruits that you're losing because people are going to want to play for him.
See, it would
And with
make
the
more
with
sense.
with the expanded college football playoffs, if you can win the conference that Florida Atlantic is in, which I believe it's the American conference that they play in, you're going to get into the college football playoff. You will get the 12th and final seed, but you're still getting in the college football playoff. And then once that happens, depending on who that matchup is, you can pull a first round upset.
Yeah, because you'd be 12 versus 5.
Yeah.
And right now, number 5 would be Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not I mean, that's absolutely a winnable game.
And that's the same thing with Colorado right now, where if Colorado wins the Big 12, because all they got to do is win outright and then win, obviously, the Big 12 championship game, Colorado's probably going to get as high as they can get, is probably 10. Then if they get to be number 10 in the country, you're getting the 7 seed as your first game. That's a very winnable matchup as whoever you're facing as a 7 seed.
That's likely to be Penn State.
Or Notre Dame.
I think Notre Dame is going to wind up winning out. Like it's
They were saying that. I just had that on this morning. Even if Notre Dame wins out, the highest Notre Dame can get is a 5 seed. They cannot get into the top 4 because they do not play in the conference. And that's ultimately what's going to hurt Notre Dame. That's why they said Notre Dame might not have a choice but to join either the ACC or the Big Ten next year. Otherwise, they will never, even if they go undefeated, the highest they will ever be able to get, according to the new playoff rules, is a number 5 seed because they don't play in the conference.
That's crazy, but I get it.
So the conference champions are the ones that get the bye.
The power, like, so the not the Big 12, but the SEC champion, the Big 10 champion, the ACC champion will get 3 of the first round byes. Then it all depends on kind of seeding, where chances are whoever takes second in the SEC or second in the Big 10 is going to get that 4 seed.
Right.
I think it's looking like Texas. Who do you think it's going to be? I think it's going to be Texas, Alabama for the SEC championship.
Right now, depending, because right now Texas A&M is actually leading the SEC.
Oh, in conference play they are.
Yeah,
you're right. In conference play, wow, wouldn't that be wild?
Funny thing is, because you played Texas A&M,
if we get them the last game of the season,
and if you beat Texas A&M the last game of the season, you would have a rematch the next week in the SEC title game.
Wow, how crazy! Now that's freaking crazy. I tried to get tickets to that damn Texas A&M game, but I don't have $850 for the nosebleed. I don't have $2,700 for the 50-yard. So
yeah, I think you're gonna start seeing this a lot with those group of 5 teams, where a guy like Ray Lewis or like even Trent Dilfer right now. I think Trent Dilfer right now is at South Florida. I believe he's at as the head coach right now. And South Florida is not going to finish that great this year. They're going to finish 6-6, but I think you're going to start seeing like a lot of these former NFL coaches get asked to kind of take over these smaller college jobs where you get your name out there. Players are going to want to play for you just because of the success you had in the NFL. You have that name. And if you can find a way to win the conference that year, you're putting yourself in the college football playoff, which is ultimately what these teams want a shot at.
Well, be interesting to see if Army was able to beat Notre Dame.
I think Army can.
I don't know.
Especially with how the weather is supposed to be in New York on Saturday, I think Army can. It's supposed to be very rainy and windy on Saturday. And Army runs the football, and they run it quite often, so that kind of weather would play into Army's hands.
Well, yeah, I mean, hell, Army and Navy, they're built around the run game. I mean, they very rarely pass. A few times every now and then, but
No, that's the Air Force. Air Force passes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like BYU. That's where all the BYU coaches that don't make it at BYU go to Air Force. So the Air Force Academy out that way. But I it'd be interesting because obviously, you know, the was it the Atlantic 10 or the A10 conference, whatever that Army's in
The
with Notre
American,
Dame,
the American.
American Conference. If Army was to win that and go to the championship and win that, and then play the next week and lose to Navy, it actually wouldn't do anything to hurt their playoff chances. They would actually be in the playoffs already.
Because they took out Notre Dame.
So it'll be funny to kind of see that occur because I firmly believe that that could happen. You know, that they win the championship and then play against Navy and literally don't play against Navy and Navy wins that game.
Man, that would be insane. That would be insane.
I mean, it was feasible until Navy lost, obviously, that they could have both gone undefeated
Into that game.
into that game, into the championship game.
And that would
Whoever
have
won
technically,
that game, it would have actually had to play back to back.
because that would have technically, that's kind of what I was hoping for, because that would have technically been a de facto championship game, because the winner of that would go into the championship game, and then the loser of that would essentially be eliminated, and then Tulane would come into the picture as the other team to get into that championship game.
Well, no, but I'm talking about if the championship game is the week before Army Navy.
Yeah.
So if Army and Navy both made it to the championship game, they would actually be playing back to back.
Yep.
So
That's
it
what
would
I
have
was.
been the winner of the championship game could lose the following week and
Yeah.
and still be in the championship and still be in the playoffs because they
The
won
final
the more
rankings,
important of the two games.
the final rankings would have been done the Tuesday before that game would have been played, so it wouldn't have
Right.
mattered at that point.
Exactly correct.
Because
So
Army is the only FBS team that plays that weekend, or Army and Navy are the only two FBS teams that play that weekend. And then there are like 3 FCS teams that play that weekend. So that weekend is technically a weekend that doesn't even count, because all the college football rankings are done the Tuesday before that game. All the bowl games are already divvied out before that game is even played. That's just that one game they're going to play every year just because it's Army Navy, and that's why they put it where they put it. It's because they don't want that game to affect the team's bowl chances, or they don't want that game to affect the team's conference title hopes if it were to happen in week 12 and all of a sudden Army beats Navy and that's Navy's only loss, and that ultimately hurts their chances to maybe get into the college football playoff. They just want it to be kind of that fun game, the celebration game, where it's everyone's here to celebrate football and celebrate the men and women who serve for the country and all that stuff.
and that's it. And that's it. It's not for anything else other than
I mean,
pride.
obviously it's for pride. Yeah, they don't want it to count towards standings. Like, obviously it's going to go on your record as a win or a loss, but they don't want it to count towards like the regular season standings, where that one loss could ultimately determine where you go in a bowl game, or ultimately determine your spot of getting somewhere versus somewhere else.
Should they do it earlier in the season?
No, I like it. I like it how it is. I like it at the end, because if you do it earlier in the season, you still have other games you have to compete with based on, like, depending on who plays what week. But by doing it the week that they do it, they're the only 2 FBS teams that play. Like, everybody that wants to watch college football is going to watch that game. That's the main reason why.
Well, I get that because it puts all eyes on the armed forces. I mean, I can understand that.
That's why they do it.
That's
And
the
they
only
have,
game that ever conflicts me, man, because I served in the Navy and I served in the Army,
Mhm.
and I just always go neutral in that game because I can't root for either one of them. I was in both of them, so it's always a confliction game for me. But
Not me. I'm always go Navy, beat Army. So, and I've got, like I said, one of my best friends here is an Army guy, and I tell him the same thing. And he always turns to me and he goes, "Hey, we're on the same team. We're on the same team." So, not on that weekend. We're not.
That's right, damn it. And you don't know how much flack I took in the Army, man, when I would tell them, yeah, I just go neutral, man, because I was like, oh, that's right, you're a Navy guy. Now you're in the Army. I'm like, yeah, it's what it is.
Yeah. So, it is what it is. I kind of think that, well, we're going to find out this week what happens with the Notre Dame Army game, because that's going to be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if that what comes to fruition on that.
Even if Army loses, if they keep it competitive, I think that helps their chances out more than Notre Dame. Because Notre Dame's schedule they've really not had a tough schedule. I mean, they barely beat Northern Illinois in week 1, I think it was, but outside of that, they've pretty much taken care of everybody they've played because their schedule's been really easy. This is really that first tough game that they've had since like week 2. And if Notre Dame struggles to put them away, now you're looking at Notre Dame. It's like, yeah, no, we're not going to seed you higher than 10. Like, you're not one of the 10 best teams in the country just because your schedule's so weak.
Right. Well, and our Army keeps winning and keeps going back in the standings. It's just funny to me that they were as high as 21. I think now they're 25.
Mm-hmm.
So
the game that I'm most intrigued to see is the Indiana-Ohio State game.
That's going to be an interesting game.
Because nobody's giving Indiana a chance in hell, which rightfully so. When you look at this Ohio State's recruiting class compared to Indiana's recruiting class and all that, I can understand why. But Kirk Cignetti is a damn good head coach. And there's a reason why Indiana gave him a 5-year, $40 million extension 9 games into his first season at Indiana. Like this, look at what he did last year with James Madison. James Madison was one of the more dominant programs at the FCS level. They made the jump to the FBS last year. What did they do? They started the season 11-0. And the only reason why they couldn't play in a bowl game is because you have to be in the FBS 2 years before you can qualify for a bowl game. And yet he started 11-0 last year in his first go-around in the FBS. So he proved he can coach in the FBS level last year, goes to Indiana this year, and he's given Indiana the best season they've had in program history. It's the first time they've ever won 10 games in a season.
Man, you see Ohio State's offensive lineman, Seth McLaughlin. It looks like he's going to be possibly out for the season due to that. I guess it looks like an ACL tear, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. No, Achilles.
Yeah,
sustained an Achilles injury. Damn, that could be huge for Ohio, especially since they're number 2 ranked. That could come down on them. It's going to be interesting.
This is technically the Big Ten championship game too, because Oregon's already clinched a spot in the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
So whoever wins this game gets that shot at Oregon, whether it's Ohio State getting a second shot or Indiana getting the shot. Like, this is basically the 1A Big Ten championship game this weekend.
Yeah.
Because Penn State can't get in because they lost to Ohio State and they lost to, I think, Oregon as well. No, they only have one loss. They didn't play Oregon.
They didn't play Oregon, right?
Yeah, they lost to Ohio State, so Penn State can't get into the Big Ten championship game even with one loss, because if Indiana wins this game, they're undefeated, the same thing as Oregon. Then it's Oregon and Indiana, regardless of what happens next weekend. So this is like your de facto Big Ten championship game where the winner gets Oregon.
Right. Well, do you suspect that it'd be Ohio State and maybe get a return battle against Oregon? Do you think that they beat Indiana?
Yeah.
I'm picking Indiana to beat Ohio State right now.
Really?
Just because Indiana has, even when Indiana's been like winning the games that they've won, they've still been viewed as the underdog pretty much in a lot of these games. Like when you look at the betting line, obviously they've been favored to beat like Michigan. They've been favored to beat the teams that they should beat, but they've still been underdogs in the minds of a lot of people that cover the Big Ten. Like a lot of people still don't believe that this 10-0 Indiana team is a good 10-0 Indiana team. And I'm like, they've had one game decided by less than 10 points this year.
But you know what they say, Stat Guy, right? You live in that moniker until you change
Exactly.
But they go in there and beat Ohio, then people are gonna start taking that program more seriously, right?
They still should have been.
They
still should have been because they've only had one game decided by less than 10 points. Like every game this year, they've like dominated who they've played. And like I get that their schedule is kind of like Notre Dame's too. It's like a weak schedule. But when Indiana hired Kirk Cignetti, I said from the start that was going to be the coaching hire of the year, because Kirk Cignetti is a hell of a head coach. And as soon as he got there, Indiana got 47 transfers in the transfer portal that wanted to play for Kirk Cignetti.
I don't know. I know the guy's a great coach. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, in that Indiana program, like you even said, they think the schedule isn't as good as Ohio's. So Ohio's going to keep that, but also they have a lot to prove. You're great. You're 10-0, But let's see you go in there and beat the Oregons, the Penn States, and Ohio's and stuff. And then we can start, taking you more seriously.
They don't even have to beat them. They just have to show that they can play with them. Like if they go and lose by 10
I would
points
agree
to
with
Ohio,
that.
if they go and lose by 10 points to Ohio State, Indiana might not even drop.
I don't know though. I said I agree with that, but I don't think I do agree with that. I think you have to beat them. I think if you want to change the narrative of how people look at that school, you got to go in there and you got to win the big game. You can't just stay with them. You got to beat them.
Yeah, if you want to change the narrative, yeah, but if they were to lose by like 10 points or less to Ohio State this weekend, I don't even see them dropping in the college football playoffs. They might fall from 5 to 6. But you're not going to fall from like 5 to 10 if you're right there with Ohio State and you lose.
Actually, depending on what Penn State does, I think that they would fall behind Penn State.
Yeah, like Penn State right now is 6. I can see Penn State going 6 to 5 and Indiana going down to 6, but they're not going to go from like 5 down to like 9 or 10, losing by like one possession to Ohio State. Like if they're right there the whole game and lose, Indiana's still going to be right there in the top 6 at the end of the year. They're going to be right there hosting the first round of the college football playoffs and potentially a second home game too, based on what happens.
Wow. And I will tell you that this is probably the first time in a really long time that this hour went by fast with Jay here. That we were able to talk sports. We were able to understand what Jay was saying. He was concise. He was poignant. This is a banner day today without Bo. Bo didn't even get to see any of this. So see what happens when you get off the sauce and you just go with normal soda. So, anyways, guys,
I can.
Yeah, so we will be back tomorrow. Maybe Bo will be with us. Maybe he won't be. It'll be a little tough to tell as they are having a interesting time out there with a cyclone. It's a cyclone. It's not a hurricane. Over out on the West Coast, they're called cyclones because they go backwards or something funny like that. I don't know exactly what the story is, but. Anyways, it's not a hurricane, it's a cyclone, and they're in the middle of it, which is why you didn't see Bo today. Maybe we'll see him tomorrow. But until then, like and subscribe to all our stuff. It helps us be able to give this content to you, this banner content, which was amazing today. I have to actually give Jay some credit. So, anyways, guys, have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care.